So we're studying congruent triangles. And in this section, we want to look at a couple of postulates that we can use to show that two triangles are congruent. The first is the side-side-side congruence postulate. And it says this, that if three sides of one triangle are congruent to three sides of the second, then the two triangles are congruent. So here I have I just have it stated here, and you can see that, yeah, these two triangles, they do have the corresponding, all three corresponding sides are congruent. So anytime we see that situation where we have three corresponding sides congruent of two triangles, we can immediately say those triangles are congruent. So for example, look at these two triangles here, these ones. We've got the triangle PQW, and we've got the triangle TSW. And notice the corresponding sides are congruent. So we could immediately say, okay, those two triangles are congruent. That's sufficient. Three congruent sides, you immediately know that the angles, the corresponding angles, are congruent as well. Now, let's look at our second postulate that we can use from this section, and that is side, angle, side. So, look at this. Look at these two triangles. We have this side corresponding to that side is congruent. This side corresponding to this side, congruent. And the angle included is congruent to its corresponding angle included on the other triangle. Now this is important. It's side, angle, side. Side, two sides, and the included angle. It's not the case that you have this angle and then these two sides. This is saying specifically a side, an angle, and then a side. The angle is included. So when we see a situation like that, we immediately know, okay, we've got congruent triangles. Now, look, here's an example. Notice we've got corresponding sides congruent. All we need now is to show that the included angle is the included angles are congruent. In other words, I need to show that these two angles are congruent. Well, we know that those two angles are vertical angles. So see, we go back to other things that we've learned. Those two angles are vertical, therefore they're congruent. Therefore, we have a situation that is side, angle, side. So, yes, those two triangles are congruent to each other. So we've got the triangle ABE is congruent to triangle DCE. It's important you keep everything lined up. Okay? So we go ABE and DCE. Okay? Yeah, there we go. Okay, now let's just see if we can figure this out. We've got these three situations here, and we want to know which triangles are congruent. Now, ideally, we want to get to the point where we can just look at a couple of triangles and know, okay, these two are congruent. We don't want to have to sit down and do a lot of work with it. So we want to be able to eyeball it and tell. Now, this first one, you notice that you've got side, angle, side. Side, angle, side. Therefore, those two triangles are congruent. Now, over here, notice you've got side. There's another side. So those two sides are congruent. Now, having two sides congruent is not enough. What about this side? QR. Well, QR is congruent to itself. QR is a part of both triangles. So QR is congruent to itself by the reflexive property. Reflexive. Okay. So, yeah, this is side, side, side. Now, this one over here, we've got two sides, but I don't know about the third side. And I don't know about these angles, this angle and this angle. I don't know if they're congruent. There's not enough there to tell me they are. So I'm afraid I'm just going to have to say, yeah, there's not enough information there. Okay, because they're not vertical angles. I don't know if those angles are congruent. So there's not enough info there. Okay, now let's just look and see if we can do a little bit of a formal proof here. I've got a statement and a reason over here. Okay? And I want to prove that those two triangles are congruent. Now, certainly, we start off with EF is congruent to GH, and FG is congruent to HE. And that is just given. Now, we also know this. We know that GE is congruent to GE because segments are congruent to themselves. Okay, a segment is congruent to itself. So, or you can remember the reflexive property. Reflexive property. Or, you don't have to remember that term. It's easy to forget these terms and get them wrong. If you just say a line segment is congruent to itself, that's enough. Therefore, we've got the triangle EFG is congruent to GHE by side, side, side. Yeah, and that's enough. So there we've got two little postulates that we can use to show triangles are congruent. And then we've got a few little practice problems down here. A couple of proofs that you can play around with.